Evening, guys. Toolman Tim here. Welcome back to the workshop where we create community, find freedom, promote preparedness, and share success. Tonight, we got a good one. I got a buddy of mine, somebody that I would consider a friend whom I've yet to meet in real life. Maybe someday when I'm allowed to cross the border again. But we'll have Tactical Redneck on in just a few minutes to talk about hidden security in plain sight. But real quick here before we go any further, I just got a couple of quick announcements for you. First off, Thursday night will be the last live stream until December 30th. So I'm going to miss you guys, but I just had to let you know. Thursday night will be an episode of preparedness on electrical work. So we're going to talk about what we can do to, the main electrical problems we're going to have and what we can do to fix it, what to keep on hand, what skills to learn, all of that kind of stuff. And one more quick thing for you guys before we dive in. If you have any suggestions for guests, I've got a couple lined up for the new year. But for a while, I was kind of 2 months lined up here. And, once the new year starts, I'd love to get a whole bunch more people on to chat about anything. So if you're interested, or if you know somebody who would make a good guest on the Sunday night live stream, give me a holler. Okay, let's bring Tactical on. Hey, Tactical, how are you?
Doing good.
Good.
I think I'm a little bit warmer than you are right now.
I think so. Yeah, it was minus 22 Celsius here right now, which is in freedom units. I'm so bad. It's the weirdest thing. It's like minus 32 divide by 3. I can't remember the conversion, but there's some kind of rule there,
It's below zero, so it's cold.
It is cold. We had it was supposed to be a 1/4 inch of snow last night, and it turned into 2.5 inches. And there was wind this morning and minus 17, and we were 4.5 hours clearing all the snow for all the property. So how's it been there for weather?
We had a good cold snap come through, a couple of good nights that were in the low 20s Fahrenheit here, but the last couple of days has been really nice. It's been up to like 72 Fahrenheit the last 2 days. So I'm just booking it as fast as I can to try to get some stuff done before it turns cold again.
How the pigs for you? I know you guys keep some pigs there. They pretty good for the cold weather.
Yeah, they're doing pretty good. We've got a barn for them, and we throw hay in so they all pile in there. It's fun throwing the hay in there because as soon as you walk the bale over there, trying to sit there and it's like a family effort to make the bed for the night. But that's actually what I was working on today was one of the gates for the pig pasture. The soil is actually so good down there. Even though I sunk the post in as deep as I could possibly get them, I went like a good 4 feet in the ground. The posts were starting to come loose, so I just dumped about 500 pounds of concrete in there.
So that was the concrete work you were talking about then.
Yeah. So we're actually
artists.
We're hoping to be able to move them to a next door property that has a pond that's not sealed, because we need to split them up because they're a little bit cramped in the pasture they're in. So we're going to try to put 3 of them over in the pond so they can seal that up and they'll have a little bit more space.
Well, that'd be all right. Yeah, you guys, I hear Nicole talks about the pigs quite often, but I hadn't had a chance to chat with you about it yet. But when do any of them graduate to freezer camp?
We're hoping sometime in February.
Okay.
So we're going to be keeping 2 of them, 1 male and 1 female for breeders, and then the rest are going to graduate here in the next couple of months.
That's always the most delicious part, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
So, all right. Some people are probably wondering who this hippie-looking dude is here that we got. So tell me, who is a Tactical Redneck anyway?
A lot of things, really. I mean, the name actually came from, I grew up in the southern end of Mississippi, very much a redneck, spent most of my time out in the woods. And then I did 17 years with the military, both in the Marine Corps and with the Coast Guard. And while I was with the Coast Guard, I did a lot of maritime law enforcement. So really a blend of being a redneck as well as a very strong tactical background. So you get the Tactical Redneck, but I've always liked the outdoors. I've always liked, any type of gardening, plants, that type of thing. So, right now I'm right where I'm supposed to be, sitting on a homestead with, pigs, ducks, goats, chickens, a couple of dogs, a bunch of cats, and then, indoor hydroponics. We got outdoor hydroponics, aquaponics, all sorts of garden beds. A lot of big projects going right now. We're getting ready to build a huge covered area in front of Nicole's house, and after that's done, we're going to be revamping all of her hydroponics and aquaponics systems and putting in a Miyagi pond. And that's hopefully we're going to have that done by her workshop, or at least partially done by her workshop, coming up in April. So we'll see how that goes. But I mean, my background overall, I mean, I've done pretty much everything. I was a mechanic with the military. I've got the law enforcement side, I've got the Marine Corps infantry side, just a very wide background of stuff.
I was trying to think back of when I first chatted with you, and I think it was probably on Zello. I think I could be wrong. You used to be on there some, right? When you were stationed, you were over near Fidel, weren't you? Somewhere like that.
Yeah, I used to be on there a lot, especially when I was over there because there was really nothing else to do. But I've been meaning to try to get back on there a little bit more. I've been so busy lately; it's been insane.
So I was thinking about it. I think you'd fit in really well where I grew up in Nova Scotia. You said redneck, and then you mentioned marine, and of course, the lobster fishing and stuff out there. That's what it's all about. But you said maritime law. Did you have any fun stories there? Anything? Because not everybody is. How do you want to put it? Not everybody's even spent time on the water, let alone enforce the law on the water.
Oh, I've got a bunch of good stories from that one. One of my favorite ones was we got the Coast Guard got a request passed through the State Department from the Grand Cayman Royal Police Department. And they had a cargo ship coming in that had been red flagged for possibly carrying narcotics, and they didn't know what to do. And so they sent us over there to basically act as what's the word for it? To guide them to an advisor.
Okay.
To advise them on how to do it. So we had to get sworn in with their police department.
No
so
way.
Apparently their constable was at the squash court playing squash when we showed up. So they threw us in these vans and took us over to the squash court, and he's, in his gym clothes covered in sweat, and, we all do the whole raise your right hand thing, and he swears us in as constables with the Grand Cayman Royal Police Department. And we spent about a week offloading this cargo ship, which was carrying, I don't know how much sand, but it was, 500 feet of sand. And however wide this thing was and however deep it was, and we spent a week offloading the thing. And at one point, the captain called us into his little lounge area, and he's trying to tell us something, but he doesn't speak English. And I'm like, I don't know what you're saying, dude. Sorry, I don't speak. It's not a language that I learned some Spanish, but I know some Japanese, but I never learned Russian. And he's sitting here pointing, and he's pissed off. And all of a sudden, here comes the first mate booking it down the hallway, and he's pissed as hell. And I'm like, we're about to get into a fight. So one of my guys steps up to interact with the first mate, and I've got my hand on my baton. I'm ready to go. I'm like, we're about to throw down. I'm going for the femur. I'm going to try to get a good, clean swing and hit that femur and see if I can break it in half. And he finally calmed down, and then I finally realized somebody had been in a captain's lounge and gotten some mud on one of the cushions.
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, really? Really? That's what this whole thing is about? You're pissed off because somebody got some mud on your cushion? Like,
So
all of
did
this for that. Like, can I go back to doing what I was supposed to be doing now?
did you find anything playing in the sand?
Um, we did not. We wound up getting relieved by another unit about 7 days into it, and they were there for another 3 days. I don't think they actually found anything, but I actually think it was a diversion. Just the way that everything kind of lined up, it just seemed like it was just a big distraction to tie up a bunch of assets.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that was what was going on because there was too much key. There was a key player involved that was known to be a cartel member and all that kind of thing, and so forth and so on. So I think it was a diversion. But I've had a couple, not that I got the bust on, but we had another one where there's these fishing boats, and I was like, that one either has drugs or they just did. Because they have these propane tanks, like these 100-pound pigs mounted on top of the pilot house that feeds their cooking stoves. And I was like, those tanks are brand new. Like they
Yep.
just put those on there. Every single one I've ever seen is rusted so bad, I'm scared to stand next to it.
Yep.
And I don't get scared about stuff like that, but those things scare me. I'm like, those things are brand new. They either have drugs or they just did. So they relayed that to another unit, and that unit wound up boarding them and busting them for, I think, marijuana and cocaine.
Well, that where I
So,
grew up on the East Coast, it was, you could literally come up the Atlantic Ocean and you always heard the stories. All the different hard drugs would come in there in the middle of the night. And there
yep.
really wasn't any, I mean, there was a bit of Coast Guard, but there really wasn't a whole lot in our area. And so, I mean, it was just a nonstop drug fest coming through there. And I think it still is, but at least. So another quick question about that. What was the longest you were ever on a boat for? Like all at once, like without coming to land?
I think the longest patrol that I had was about 3.5 months.
Oh my,
So we weren't
okay.
at sea the entire time. We had some port calls here and there, but the longest deployment I did, where we were away from home port was about 3.5 months.
Okay. You have to get your land legs back when you once you've been on the boat for a while. Did you ever have that?
Oh yeah, that's definitely a thing. I mean, when you spend that much time at sea, like the whole Captain Jack Sparrow with the that's actually kind of a thing because I mean, when you're rocking and rolling, you kind of have to keep your hands up because when you take that roll and you want to be able to put your hand up against something to brace yourself. So that's actually kind of a thing. I've been in seas so bad, we were rolling so hard, you had 1 foot on the ground and 1 foot on the wall.
Never quite. Well, I think 35 knots was about the worst I was on for, and that was bad enough. But I don't. Yeah, it was not fun. But so I love the title. For the record, Tactical just give me the title before we started, and so it was. See if I get it right here. Hidden security in plain sight. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what does that mean?
Basically having stuff that provides security for you that just looks like some normal inanimate object. One of the examples I'll usually use is most people have a flower bed in front of their house.
Mm-hmm.
Well, if you put a nice rose bush in front of the window, that kind of acts like a fence right in front of your window. So, if you've got a line of rose bushes in front of your house, it's acting like a fence, even though it doesn't look like a fence.
Makes sense. Sure. Hey, plus, it's also a fence that you really don't want to climb on, I suppose.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Huh. Yeah, I get it. So I mean, where do you go from there? Like what are some things that people can do, I guess?
I mean, there's a lot that can be done, and it's really about sitting down and starting to think outside the box. Because I mean, obviously, most people when you start talking about like home security, they automatically want to think, well, I've got my tactical AR that weighs 13.79 pounds, and it's got two flashlights on there because you got to have the redundancy, and I got optics and backup optics and iron sights and lasers, and that's what everybody always goes straight to. But that's also meaning that, okay, your only defense is if somebody breaks into your house, you're going to shoot them. Why don't we start with getting somebody to not try to break into your house?
It's exactly what I was going to.
So,
Yeah. I love it.
It really depends on, where you're at, because, I can't tell you what to do because I've never seen your house. I don't even know if you live in a residential neighborhood or not. That obviously changes drastically from where I'm at because I'm on a homestead. Like if I throw up a barbed wire fence here, that's like wearing a cowboy hat to a rodeo. Like nobody's gonna notice. But if you live in a HOA and you try to put up a barbed wire fence, you're gonna piss your neighbors off. And you're also gonna make yourself a target. Because that's another thing that a lot of people skip over is, if you're driving down the road and you see a 10-foot high chain link fence with razor wire on top, what's the first thing that goes through your head? There's something important in there.
Exactly.
But, around here, there's a lot of fences that, the actual fence itself is old and rusted, and you could kick it really hard and put a hole in it. Actually, you could probably kick it really lightly and put a hole in it. But the problem is it's so overgrown with all kinds of vines and blackberries and everything else that the plants themselves become a fence. And some of them have some nice sized thorns. I mean, we've got some locust trees around here that have 6-inch thorns. They call them tractor tire poppers.
I believe it.
Literally put a hole in a tractor tire.
So yeah. Oh, go ahead. Sorry. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, it really depends on your situation. So, going to the, just say the residential neighborhood thing real quick. I like to create a barrier to keep somebody off my property completely, not just out of the house. So if you wanted to put something that functioned as a fence up in an HOA, well, if you went out and, you were to do some nice, pretty landscaping and you went out to the sidewalk and you put this nice long flower bed in and you started planting all kinds of roses and bushes that put on pretty flowers. And oh, by the way, they come with big ass thorns. It kind of does the same thing, but nobody's going to give you any grief over it. So, it's really catering it to the situation and just kind of doing your own assessment as to what you can do and what you actually have. Because that's one thing. When I showed up here, moved into the place I'm living right now, and I looked at it from a security standpoint, I was like, this is perfect. I've got 2 access points. There's 3 fences on each side of each access point. They're overgrown with vines. There's a pond in between one of them. There's a pig pasture in between the other one that has an electric fence on it. And if anybody tries to come up through those access points, if I put one person at my house and one person at the neighbor's house, I got them in a crossfire. Now, whoever designed this property didn't design it that way. But when I showed up here and I looked at it from a security standpoint, that's what I saw. And of course, I'm elaborating on that now. And when I'm redoing the fences here, I'm redoing it in such a way that I'm controlling the access points and where they are and how difficult it is to get from one part of the property to the other. But I'm also on the flip side of that because it is a homestead, I'm also making sure that I do have access to the parts of the property where I want to go.
That makes sense. So I mean, kind of blending in to make sure I get I live in a residential area, like a small town, and so of course the biggest thing with our area is bylaws, right? And I can have a 6 foot fence as long as it doesn't encroach even 1 inch past the front of my house. However, there's no rule against hedges, so I can have a hedge that's 10 feet high, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I'm doing. I just let it grow about a foot each year, and I've got an 8 foot wall out front now that is not a fence, and it's completely legal, and it
Yeah,
doesn't attract any attention, right?
exactly.
I love
And I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
it's the same thing too. I mean, even where I live, like I said, you can put up a barbed wire fence,
right.
and most people aren't going to notice. The problem with if I went out and strung up a brand new barbed wire fence, like I was saying, you see something that's old and dilapidated, what do you think? It's old, dilapidated, nobody lives there. But if you put up a brand new barbed wire fence, somebody's probably running some cattle or something.
Right.
What do you have when you run cattle? You have a barn. What's in your barn? Really expensive tools.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of the big things around here is people breaking into people's barns.
Mm.
So I don't want my property looking like I've got a bunch of high-end tools in there. So that's why we're getting ready to redo part of the fence that runs along the road. But what we're actually planning on doing is stringing up a bunch of leftover fencing from other projects and some of the stuff we've managed to salvage from other parts of the property. It's going to look like crap. But we're also going to be planting Osage orange going down that fence line about every foot. And then after a year, we're going to take all of those shoots and bend them over and tie them off. And they'll sit there and put up shoots going down the trunk. And then the next year we'll come in and we'll fold those over. And we're going to basically weave that Osage orange into each other. And Osage orange has thorns. And it's going to grow through all of that fencing as well. And so what you're going to end up with is basically a woven hedge with thorns.
That's awesome. I've seen once in a while you see it might be a Japanese thing, I can't remember, but where they basically make living fences where they weave yeah. And of course it has the bonus in this case of having thorns as well.
Yeah, and it's actually a very old practice throughout the world. Because I mean, you got to remember, back in the day, a couple of 100 years ago, it's not like you could run down to Tractor Supply and go buy some fencing. So, given the choice between stacking a bunch of rocks to try to make, well, if you even had rocks to stack,
mm-hmm.
or planting some bushes and weaving them together to make a fence, what's easier? That's why it's been done for so long. And it's something that most people don't think about. But at the same time, to kind of back up a little bit, once again, you're in a residential neighborhood. You probably have a flower bed in front of your house, right?
We do, yeah.
You have a sidewalk that goes to your front door?
Yep.
Thinking about, from a security standpoint, if you wanted to turn your house into kind of a fortress, you want a controlled access point. You want somebody coming down your sidewalk if they're going to break in, you want to be able to see them coming. So you have that controlled point. So if you string your rose bushes all the way across the front of your house, they're obviously going to go path of least resistance and go through the opening in the rose bushes. On top of the fact, I went to a driving course one time, and one of the drills that we had to do, they had us in the driver's seat, The instructor was in the passenger seat, and he would reach over and grab the steering wheel. And he'd say, get up to 55 miles an hour. So he'd get up to 55 miles an hour. And he'd say, close your eyes.
Oh, wow.
Really uncomfortable, but you got to sit there, hold your foot on the gas, and close your eyes. And he's steering from the passenger seat. And then he'll say, open your eyes. And you open your eyes, and there's an obstacle straight in front of you. And you've got to figure out how to get around the obstacle.
Oh, wow.
Well, you can go to the left and stay on the road, but there's a bunch of other obstacles. But where they do this at on the right-hand side off the road is just this flat, open area of grass that's pretty smooth.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole goal of this drill was to get you to break that mental rule to stay between the lines, because what do you learn growing up? Stay between the lines.
Yep.
They're trying to break that rule of stay between the lines and get you to go to the right. It's perfectly safe to do it, but we've got that mental block, so they're trying to break that mental block. But, you know, when somebody's coming up to your house, they still have that same mental block. They're supposed to stay on the sidewalk.
Mm-hmm.
So using stuff like that to your advantage as well. And I mean, of course, everybody thinks windows, you know, robbers think about windows. So making it difficult to get to the window, but easy to get to the door. They'll be more inclined to go to the door. Now, if somebody breaks in, you more than likely know where they're trying to break in at.
Right. I love it. I know you're very quotable. That's great. Yeah, yeah. Make it difficult to get to the window, but easy to get to the door. I love it. So if you had like, if you took somebody in or somebody that went to a brand new property, what are the things that you look for when you first get started? If that makes sense, kind of.
Yeah, I mean, the first thing I'm really looking for because I've moved a lot.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the longest I was ever in one place, I think, was 3.5 years. Usually I was moving about every 2 years. So I moved a lot. And, you know, the first thing I'm looking at when I get onto a property is, you know, doors, windows, you know, does everything lock? How good are the locks? That type of thing. You know, is there any other place where, you know, if I locked my keys in the house, is there any way I can get into the house?
Mm-hmm.
You know, thinking about it from that angle, and then starting to kind of assess, you know, another thing I really put a lot of thought into is, you know, where is my truck going to be parked? Where are my tools going to be?
Right.
You know, a lot of people, you know, they like to have, you know, their nice shiny boat and their nice shiny four-wheeler sitting right in front of the garage. So when they open the garage door, all the neighbors can see, you know, I've got this nice shiny four-wheeler.
Yeah.
What? Anybody who wants to steal it can see it too.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I don't want my really expensive 20-volt DeWalt tools somewhere where you might think that they're going to be, like, you know, in a toolbox in the garage.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say where my really expensive DeWalt tools are, but they're not in the garage. They're not in the workshop.
Makes sense.
And, you know, there is some stuff in there that you can steal. You know, there's some tool bags you can grab, and you're going to get some Walmart tools. But that's going to be about it. And then, you know, obviously I've got, you know, there's a table saw in the workshop, but you're not just going to back up and steal that.
Mm-hmm.
Something you're just going to throw in the back of your truck and haul ass. So, I mean, thinking about, you know, where I have stuff like that. And then, you know, another thing I really look at is the layout of my furniture.
Oh, I never thought of that.
So, my neighbor did this completely unintentionally. But when I looked at it, I'm like, that's awesome from a security standpoint. When you walk in their front door, about 4 feet on the other side of the front door is their couch. So if you tried to go, in a dead sprint through their front door, you're going to make it about 4 feet, and then you're going head first over the top of the couch.
Mm-hmm.
So, when you come in, you have to go around the couch on one side or the other. But as you start to go around the couch, they have a chair on each side with one of those little, what do you call the things you prop your feet up on?
Like a footstool?
Yeah, kind of, but the fancy ones that women like,
Ottoman?
Yeah, an ottoman. You got, a chair on each side with an ottoman.
Yeah.
So now you have to come in. You have to go one way or the other, go around the couch, then you have to go back to the center of the room. So it's almost like an obstacle course to get through their den.
That's awesome.
And of course, each one of those things is a distraction for somebody that's breaking in, because they have to look at every single thing. Because, if I'm a homeowner and I'm armed, I could be hiding behind any of that stuff. So, it creates some stuff for them to look at, and it's something else they have to navigate as they're trying to get to the house. So just looking at the layout of the furniture. The way I actually have my house set up is if you go in my front door, there's space on the right-hand side, but it's completely filled up with foot lockers. There's a wardrobe. There's like a chest cabinet thing that sits about yay high, about 3 feet high, and it goes from one wall to the other. And then on the left-hand side is the couch for the living room, which is butted up against the wall that the front door is on. So when you come in the front door, if you want access to the rest of the house, you have to go through this corridor in between these lockers and the couch. And then when you make the left to go around the couch, there's a bunch of other stuff, because that happens to be, you might not necessarily see it when you come in the door, but there's a bunch of stuff on the floor because it's where I lay out all the projects that I'm working on. So right now there's a bunch of plumbing fittings and stuff in there. If you ever watched, was that old movie, Home Alone?
Yep. Oh yeah.
Where he's got the micro machines and the Hot Wheels all over the floor. It's like that in my den right now with plumbing fittings.
Real quick, there, just for the last couple of minutes, the sound got kind of tinny or almost quiet or something. Like I lost you for a second. You're still there, but let's see how we're doing.
All right, I might have started talking a little bit quieter.
No, it's okay. It's just kind of, I don't know, robot-y or something, but I think we're okay.
It might be the weather rolling in. We were already supposed to be getting some rain. I'm glad it held off, though.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. So we're okay for now. There. I don't know. We'll see how you're doing. Anyway, so yeah. So what I like the idea behind that, like with an ottoman, is that everybody is they're coming in and they're looking at the coach, so their eye level's up here, and then all of a sudden they're running in, and they're maybe not looking at it, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just it's an added layer of stuff for them to have to pay attention to and navigate.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I mean, just kind of continuing along that vein, you can think about your lighting. Because, there's been some not really official tests done, but there are some tactical units that have actually played various different versions of this, where they would take, like, you'd have some guys playing the good guys and some guys playing the bad guys. And so they would take, like, a flashlight and they would turn it on. And when they go to breach the room, they throw the flashlight into the room.
Right.
And of course, everybody in there that was waiting for them to come through that door is like, they follow the flashlight.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they do it. They do this scenario like 5, 6, 7 times in a row. And every single time they follow the flashlight. So, I mean, it's something you can do. Like, I've got in my house, I've got a bunch of the little red lights that are light activated. So if it gets dark, they come on. They just plug into a 110 outlet.
Okay.
And I put them in. I use the red lights because it doesn't hurt your night vision. And I put them so that I can see to get to from the bedroom to the bathroom in the middle of the night without having to turn any lights on. But, it's something where you can strategically place those that if somebody is going to come in and you want their attention to be in a certain area, say away from your bedroom, you put the lights away from your bedroom, which also works to your advantage because if you're trying to get out of the bedroom to the bathroom, the light being next to your bedroom doesn't do you any good. So
Yeah.
being able to do that, or having the light that you turn on if you think somebody's breaking in, putting light on them and not you, and blinding them, hurting their night vision. Thinking about different stuff like that. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff you can do. I've thought of some of it, but obviously I haven't thought of everything. I mean, I've had lots of people come up with various different ideas.
I love the idea of the flashlight because what do you want to call it? We're a slave to our own nature, right? And I mean, if you're in
Oh
a
yeah,
dark area and you see a light go there, you can't, I mean, try it. Even if I told you I was going to do it, there's a good
yeah.
chance you're still going to look at it.
Oh yeah. It's natural human instinct. That's another thing to remember too, is humans, human beings' primary sense is their sight.
Right.
Secondary sense is hearing.
Hmm.
So, other animals, I think dogs' primary is hearing,
Makes sense.
and so different animals are different. People's primary sense is sight. So playing off of that when you're setting stuff up, is definitely something to think about.
So you mentioned dogs, and I figured we'd get to that at some point, but I got my 4 little tiny chihuahuas here who are some of the best alarm systems out there. But
Oh yeah.
how do they fit into this?
I mean, dogs are awesome for security, even if it is, a little chihuahua. We had an event. I can't remember which one it was. Wasn't It wasn't this past year. I think it was last year. So 2020. And somebody butt dialed 911.
Oh, wow.
It's like, oops. Well, unbeknownst to me, the sheriff's department dispatched a deputy because even though it was obviously a mistake, they still have to dispatch somebody in case it was like a kidnapping or something.
Hmm.
And my dog was outside. And all my dog knows is some dude just pulled up in the driveway and he's got a gun. She
Right.
doesn't know it's a cop. And so
Yep.
she lost her mind. And I realized very quickly that there was a sheriff's deputy. I'm like, oh my God, this dude's going to shoot my dog. So I
Right.
run out and I'm telling her to leave it, leave it, leave it. And I get a hold of her and pull her back. And he was like, oh, those don't bother me. It's the little ones you got to watch out for. They're the ones that will bite you.
Every single time. Yeah, like when mine start going crazy during the day, that's my cue to bring up my camera app and check out my security cameras because guaranteed there's somebody, and it's usually an Amazon delivery guy, but they let me know before anything else.
Yeah. I mean, having a dog that will actually bark is extremely useful. And it's probably the most useful part about it because it's alerting you that there's at least some whether or not. Did I just glitch out?
No, I got you. You know what? There was some kind of weird setting on my end that was doing. You sound perfect now. So sorry.
Yeah, my camera cut out, so I was like, "Oh God, I just lost him."
Now you're good.
But
You're perfect. So
it's going to alert you that there's at least something to pay attention to,
mm-hmm.
and you got to remember that most people, if they are doing something nefarious, they're already on edge.
Right.
So they're already anticipating, if they want to break in and steal your flat screen, they want to get in, get the flat screen, and get out. They don't want nobody to see them. They don't want nobody to know they're there. They just want to get in and get out. Well, as soon as that dog starts barking, they're like, oh my God, everybody knows I'm here now.
Right.
So it puts them further on edge. So just having that in and of itself is a huge advantage. And you never know if a dog's going to bite or not. You just don't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you can go online and watch the video with Caesar Milan, the dog whisperer, where he gets bit. You can't know whether or not a dog is going to bite or not. And so, that's an added part of it. And I mean, another thing with that is, if somebody does break in and you end up in a confrontation with them,
mm-hmm.
and there's a dog in between you and them barking, what do you think they're paying more attention to?
Good point.
Even if they are trying to talk to you, they're still paying attention they're going back and forth to that dog because they don't know what the dog's going to do. You're more
mm-hmm.
predictable than the dog is.
Yep.
And I mean, my dog, I don't know where she's at right now. She's somewhere right over there, but she's laying somewhere in the yard. Because when I bring her back at night, because we'll go up to the neighbor's house to eat, and when we come back down here, I'll take her inside and feed her. When she's done, she'll go to, I don't let her out right away, she goes to the door and starts barking. Because she wants out.
Right.
She wants to go lay in the yard because her job is to protect the homestead. And this is when the possums come around. So she wants to go lay out in the yard in
mm-hmm.
case one of those possums comes around and needs to get murdered. And she'll do it too.
I love the idea of split attention. Sorry about that, but just the fact again, like whether you're talking about the flashlight going flying or in this case the dog. I mean, you're standing here. You and I are. You're breaking in, and I'm talking to you, and the dog's barking. My focus is on you. Their focus is on me and the dog. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And it might only take a second or two to deal with the intruder, right? But that's the only time you probably need.
Yeah. So I mean that is a huge component, and I mean for me too. I mean it's a huge mindset thing because I'm a combat vet with PTSD.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, having a dog is a comfort for me because I know that if anything happens, she's my early warning system. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've been sitting here. I mean, it's pretty much every day. I mean, a dog will be sitting there completely asleep. I mean, dead asleep. And all of a sudden she sits up. And you can watch their nostrils because their nostrils actually have a slit that curls around.
Mm-hmm.
And you can watch their nostrils sit there and flare in and out. Because something, I have no idea what, something woke her up because she either heard it or she smelled it. And she's sitting there smelling the air. Like, there's something here that ain't supposed to be. There's something out of place. And until she decides, okay, it's either supposed to be here, it's fine, it's worth investigating, or it's something that ain't supposed to be here. She's going to make one of the three choices, and then she's going to act on it. If it's supposed to be here, she's going to lay back down and go to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
If it's worth investigating, she's going to get up once she figures out where it's at, what direction it's coming from, and she's going to investigate. If it's a bad bird, which is, the big birds that fly really high up in the sky that go after our poultry,
Yep.
Or a possum, we call possums bad birds too, so there's just one command.
Yep.
Then she's locking on, she's barking, she's losing her mind until that thing goes away or she engages it and kills it.
And your area, I've never been there, but hearing you and Nicole talk about it, anybody coming up there either has a reason or shouldn't be there. Is that the idea? Like, you don't just accidentally end up at your place too easily, or do you?
People that want to intentionally end up here usually have a problem doing so. So you don't just accidentally end up here. I mean,
Right.
We've got weeds growing up in the middle of our road. It's a single lane road. And there's, weeds growing up in the middle of it. So, we know there's a couple of people that don't live on our road, but they use it as a shortcut to get home. And I know what their vehicle looks like. The dogs know their vehicles because they hear them go by all the time. But, even like the mailman, when the mailman comes up, the dog's still going to bark.
Yep.
She's not going to continue to bark, but she's going to bark long enough for me to know that somebody's here. Because, she knows the mailman by now. He's been here every day for her entire lifetime.
Right.
And, anybody else that, every now and then we'll have some guy from the local internet company who was driving around, had to get some information from all of the landowners. So he pulled up the driveway. Dog goes out there. Dog starts barking. Dog does not stop barking until I go out there and tell her to leave it.
So you know that there's a somebody different, or it heightens your sense of security or urgency just a little bit more.
Yeah, and you can absolutely tell, it's like you hear mothers say that they can tell the difference in the way their baby's crying, whether the baby's hungry or they got hurt or whatever the case might be. It's the same thing with a dog. I can tell, if she's barking at a bad bird or whether she's barking because the mailman's here.
Right.
Or she's barking because she wants in the front door. So
can I this one's a little bit, I wouldn't say off course. We're kind of talking about it a little bit, being aware of your situation, but how does situational awareness play into this? Because I know we're talking about home security mostly, but part of that is just being aware of your situation, of course, right?
yeah, absolutely. You should always have some level of situational awareness. And there's a lot of simple things that you can do that, knowing the vehicles that normally transit your road, if somebody you don't recognize is driving around, taking note, at least enough that, all right, that was a red 4-door sedan. So if anything happens, I have had the situation where I saw a white Ford F-150 extended cab go by at a high rate of speed. And about 5 minutes later, I found out that he almost intentionally hit one of my neighbors.
Oh, wow.
The neighbor was standing on the side of the road and he swerved to try to hit them. And come to find out, when the sheriff's deputy got out here to take a report, he had just assaulted somebody else and was on the run from the cops already.
Oh, no shit. Okay.
and he ditched his vehicle up the road, and they think he was headed down the river on foot. But I made a middle note when that guy went by. I was like, that ain't right. And I got as good of a look as I could. I was able to identify, color. It was a Ford F-150, and it was an extended cab.
Mm-hmm.
That was about all I got, but it was enough that when the sheriff's deputy showed up, I was able to positively identify the vehicle.
That's awesome.
So, there's stuff like that. And then, I did this presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I had somebody ask me, I can't remember the exact question, but I think I said something about knowing your escape routes. And he was asking me about that. And I told him, I was like, if for some reason, there was like a mass protest in front of my house or something, and I had to get out the back way,
Mm-hmm.
there's 2 or 3 trails that I can take that go up and over the ridge behind me. I know where they go. I've been down them before. I know the different offshoots of them, and I know where they come out at. Now, do I plan on ever having to evacuate like that? No, absolutely not. But I know where they are. I know both of my trucks and my four-wheeler will make it up there.
Mm-hmm.
I know if you don't have four-wheel drive, you're not making it up there. So if somebody's going to try to chase me, they better have four-wheel drive. And what does it cost me to know all that? Nothing.
That's what honestly, I don't know if anything you've mentioned tonight actually costs anything or very, very, if as far as planting roses, yeah, roses cost money, but you can make the choice. You can have petunias or roses, right?
Yeah, you're probably going to plant something anyway.
Yeah.
So would you rather plant, a cute little bitty flower that gets to be this tall, or would you rather plant a rose bush? And you don't even, if you are going to go into that and be like, well, I can't afford to put rose bushes all the way down the front of my house, well, then don't put them all the way down the front of your house. Buy a couple and just put them in front of the windows. That way
Makes
you can
sense.
save a little bit of money. It's still not going to cost you that much money. On top of the fact you can buy one rose bush and learn how to propagate it and then just make your own.
Andy said, I've installed secondary slide locks on all my doors, usually at the top, but having the top and both sides of a door is extremely secure. That makes sense. Just extra.
Yeah.
It wouldn't, again, it's not super expensive, just something little to have, to make it that much harder to get in, I suppose.
Yeah. And there's actually, now that he mentions that, there's a number of products on the market now that don't require to be screwed in.
Oh.
And they're making them, I think most of the companies that are doing it are making it for if you're like staying in a hotel or something.
Okay.
But, if you're in a rental property where you're not allowed to screw an extra thing onto the door, that's another option. And then if you're like me and you move every 2 years, you can easily take it with you.
What do they look like? I might not, or do you know, like just kind of roughly?
It's been a while since I've seen them. There's a couple of variations that I've seen. Most of them, it's like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like a plate that you kind of stick on the side of the door and then you close it into the door jamb.
Okay. I've seen those. Yeah.
And then there's some other bigger models of stuff that almost it's like propping the chair up against the doorknob, except for it's something specifically made for that. It's got a little V-shaped piece and then a retractable arm and then like
Yep.
a rubber foot like on the bottom of a ladder, and so you just shove the V up against the doorknob and extend the leg down until it hits the ground and just kind of wedge it in there.
That's great. You could do a whole show on what do you want to call it? Rental security or apartment security, eh? That would be
Yeah,
that's cool.
yeah.
And
Or
Chris,
you could go with the really, really redneck version.
I like that.
I've got a door over here that I haven't replaced yet, and it doesn't actually latch. So I wedged the door closed as much as I could, sprayed a bunch of spray foam insulation in there, and then went around the whole door with some G number 2 silicone to seal it shut. And then I took all of the boxes of stuff that don't actually belong to me, but I'm storing for somebody right now, and I stacked them in front of the door.
That works.
It's out of my way,
Yep.
and it's in anybody that wants to come in's way.
Our front porch is that way. We use it as storage. We do not use the front door. We don't want anyone to use it. So we have storage up against there. I mean, in a fire, could we move it? Sure, in about 30 seconds, but nobody's coming through there. I can promise you that, not from the outside.
Yeah.
And Chris Dixon, he said, harder to get in is also harder to get out as well. So that makes sense. Oh, I see. I thought he was thinking in the terms of for somebody who goes in, like you said about your friend's place and trips over an ottoman and runs into a couch, but most of those are pretty easy to remove though, aren't they, from the inside?
Yeah.
Like there's not
most of those locking devices, I mean, they're made so that you can't open the door from the outside, but you can still open it from the inside.
right.
Because I mean, how else? A lot of them are made for when you're traveling in hotels, so obviously they're made to be able to be easily removed, so you can go out the door of the hotel.
Right.
Most hotel rooms only have one door.
I think there was, I seen a video not too long ago. It was for, it was a product that teachers could keep on hand, unfortunately, for school shootings and things like that. And it was for securing the door on the inside. And there was a couple different ones. One was non-permanent, and then the other one was really neat. It was almost like a flip up door stop. And I watched the video, and there was a cop just beating on this door as a, presentation to show, and he could not get through it. It was pretty incredible.
Yeah, I think I saw one of those. I think they had one that they could just slide into the bottom of the door and just kick it into place. And that's one that it's not very easily removed, but it's not really made to be. It's made to keep the door shut so that people won't get shot.
Yes, that makes sense.
So that's something that you put in place when you absolutely need it.
So what are some of the, I mean, we're talking about security, and of course, the whole idea, it sounds like your mindset is to keep people out, period. Like it's better to keep them out altogether than to have them come in. But if somebody does make it in or is on your property, what are the legal ramifications of that? Like, ever give any thoughts to that much?
Yeah, that's actually a big issue because I mean everybody's heard of the robber breaks in through the skylight and falls and cuts himself and tries to sue the homeowner.
Right.
So it's obviously getting worse and worse nowadays. So it's definitely something that you do want to take into consideration. It's another reason why I like having normal everyday things like rose bushes as opposed to razor wire.
Makes
because
sense.
If you look at a lot of some of these self-defense shooting cases, if somebody has a weapon that they put together themselves or they reloaded their own ammo or something like that, the first thing the prosecuting attorney does is start talking about they had these custom-made, hand-loaded death bullets that explode on impact that are laser guided. And it's like, you're full of shit, but but if I was to put up, a barbed wire fence in front of my house and somebody happens to just walk by and scratch their arm, they can try to sue me. But if I have a rose bush, I mean, what? You scratched yourself on a bush? Are you stupid? Like,
It's
you're
the
going to try to
intent,
sue
right?
me because you're an idiot?
Yeah, that is true. I guess you're right. Like it's the intent of it too. Like, I mean, you can easily say, I planted those rose bushes there because they're pretty, not because, the fact that they're a deterrent is great. It's that way up here with the knife laws. There's no length of knife. There's no limit to the length of knife that you can carry. However, number one, it can't be concealed. But the big thing is the police are going to judge you on your intent. So if
Yeah.
I'm walking downtown Edmonton with a hunting knife, that's a problem. But if I'm out in the country with a hunting knife, that's not a problem, right? And
Yeah.
I get that's kind of the same mindset, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's another thing that, if you have a bunch of rose bushes in front of your house, or if you have a row of rose bushes, along the sidewalk in your front yard that's, 30, 40 feet away from your house, a lawyer is not even going to think that you might have put that there for anything other than decoration.
Hmm.
It's something that nobody thinks about that, including the lawyers. So, you know, as another reason to have your security hidden in plain sight is because people just don't think about stuff like that. So you never want to set something up. I mean, in any type of a situation, whether it's your home, your weapons, your vehicle, in a manner that looks like it could be intended to harm another person just because of the whole lawsuit thing. Or, you know, the cops could misconstrue something to try to say that you intended to do something that you didn't intend to do.
Mm-hmm.
I drive a Chevy 2500 diesel because I haul a lot of feed and a lot of raw coffee.
Yep.
So usually when I'm picking up either of those, I'm picking up anywhere between 1,500 and 3,000 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
And when I bought this truck, it just happened to come with some really massive 1/4 inch steel plated bumpers.
Nice.
This thing is a tank. It's a diesel with 1/4 inch plate steel bumpers. But I didn't build those bumpers.
Right.
They were purchased by the previous owner and installed. So you can't try to tell me that I put those bumpers on there and I custom built them so I can go on a road rampage and plow into my neighbor's car because he pissed me off. Now, if I go out there and start wrapping barbed wire around the front of my bumper, now I'm actually showing an intent that I mean to possibly do somebody a harm or something like that. So, I mean, thinking about it not just with, your home and your personal defense weapons, but also thinking about it with your vehicle and everything else as well. You know, I know a lot of women who might carry some very heavy object in their purse, which has a very express purpose because it was, it's not a brick or something. It was something that they, bought for a specific purpose. But if they happen to take their purse and swing it upside your head, they're probably going to knock your ass out.
Right.
So, that's another one. I would not put a brick in my purse if I was a lady. But, if you can come up with a really heavy object that you can put in your purse, you can pretty much do the same thing with it.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, dog, come here.
We've got that kind of rule with pepper spray up here. you're not allowed to have pepper spray for personal defense, like
Yeah,
human to human,
bear
but
spray.
you're allowed to have bear spray if you're in the woods and dog spray if you're out walking, dog spray
Oh, so you're
deterrent.
covered if you're in the woods or if you're walking down the sidewalk.
Exactly. Right. So my daughter bought this pretty little pink one when she was living in the city, and she kept it on her keychain, and it was there just in case a dog ever come along. Right. And
Yeah.
that's why she bought it. But if she happened to have it and she was feeling threatened, at least it was there. Right.
Yeah. And that's another thing is like, all these guys want to talk shit about their women buying these pink guns. I'm like, let them buy a pink gun. It looks less suspicious.
Ain't that the truth?
I mean, ain't no lawyer going to try to say that, this pretty pink gun was bought with the express purpose of trying to execute 5 people.
Right.
And,
It was
talking about, dogs being for security, let's see if I can swing the camera over here real quick. There's a dog over there. I don't know what's up in there, but
he's doing something.
she's over there. There's got to be like a mouse or something that's up over there because she is all over that table sniffing around.
And it
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much they're like, they can look like they are literally dead to the world, but they never miss a thing, do they?
No, they don't. I mean, I'll sit there and I'll watch her when she's sleeping. There is like a mouse or something over there because it just went out, and I heard it hit the leaves, and she bolted right out the door after it. But I've literally watched her while she's dead asleep, and like I was saying, with her nostrils, and you can sit there and watch them flare in and out. You can sit there and you'll be watching her. All of a sudden, she'll just go from that regular breathing while she's asleep, and all of a sudden those nostrils will start going, and then she'll pick her head up, and then she'll do what she just did just now and bolt off after something.
Isn't that something? So what did we as far as, I don't know, outside the box kind of ideas and tips and things like that, any other oddball things you've ever come up with?
I mean, we've done all sorts of stuff. I mean, with don't ever do this.
Okay. Do as I say, not as I do, right?
Something called a Tabasco sauce bomb. You'll hear about these in the military, but the old MREs, the meals ready to eat.
Yep.
They've upgraded the heaters. The old ones used to come with these magnesium plate heaters, and you could actually crush them up and dump them like you dump them into a bottle.
Okay.
And then you add water to activate the heater, and it heats up and starts to expand a little bit. So you're supposed to just fold the top of the bag over so it can vent. But what you do is you take the little Tabasco sauce bottle that comes in the MRE, you dump it in the bottle first, and then you pour the water in, screw the cap on, shake it up, and toss it onto your buddy's bed. The bottle swells up, pops, and the Tabasco sauce goes everywhere, and it acts kind of like pepper spray. Well, of course, another thing I've seen done, because, when you're underway for 2-3 months at a time, you tend to get bored. So they always stocked the little air freshener bottles. That's an aerosol can, but it's almost more like a spray nozzle.
Yep.
So you take a zip tie and you loosely put it around over the nozzle, and while your buddy's in the shower, you walk up to the shower and you yank that zip tie tight so it cinches down on that handle, and sit in the shower with them. That's some stuff just for fun.
Yeah, but still, it could be a deterrent. You know what I mean? That sounds like our college days, though. That's funny.
I mean, if you wanted to smoke a room up, to where you couldn't see or couldn't breathe, the zip tie with the aerosol can, you could do the same thing with a dry chemical fire extinguisher.
Yes, sir. Yes, you could. Man, that would do it
And
too,
I
wouldn't
don't
it?
know, have you ever discharged one of those?
So back when I was probably 14 years old, my friends' parents used to go away for a couple of weeks at a time to Cancun, and they'd leave us around, So we would play the games where we would stick wrenches into light sockets. We would take the screws out of the back of liquor cabinets. And of course, one time we discharged one in the kitchen, and it wasn't even a full one, just a look. And we were like, it didn't matter. I mean, we were friggin' sick. We had 6 days till they came back, and we cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. And when they came home, they still found dust everywhere.
Yeah. So I've spent a lot of time training with shipboard firefighting, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're, a couple of 100 miles out to sea, you can't just call the fire department. But whenever we do our training, we're always in a full SCBA.
Mm-hmm.
So, I've discharged a lot of dry chemical extinguishers, but it was either doing training, in a space, we're doing an SCBA, or every now and then we would discharge expired fire extinguishers outside in the bonfire area for training with the new kids.
Okay.
The first time I ever had to discharge one inside was a garage fire. It was actually a trash can fire in a garage. It was one of the red metal trash cans.
Mm-hmm.
And the fire had gotten big enough it was starting to go up the wall. So me and my buddy, who was one of the damage controlmen off of the ship, run in there with a dry chemical extinguisher into this single car garage. And of course, we're getting this one good. And we dumped the whole bottle.
Oh, wow.
But that was the first time I'd ever done it in a confined space like that, and was like, oh my God, I thought I was going to choke to death.
Because you didn't have any scuba gear on.
Yeah, and I didn't have a respirator or nothing.
Oh my God. I love that. I never would have thought about that. But I mean, how many things around the house could be a deterrent, or I don't want to even necessarily call it a weapon, but man, you spray somebody in the face with that or anywhere in their general direction, and they're going to have a bad day.
Yeah. Now you're reminding me of old stupid stuff I've done. One of the tricks I used to use just for fun to kill spiders and wasp. A can of WD-40 and a lighter.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, you've done that too, haven't you?
I have. I had a friend who got suspended once for that. So,
yeah, actually, do I have a can? I mean, I do have a can of WD-40.
Oh boy! So we're gonna have a live demonstration of what not to do when things happen. So
don't do that.
That's awesome. And then all of a sudden we have a dry chemical fire extinguisher discharged because But
point it in a safe direction.
Have you ever tried? I've been using these like the First Alert fire sprays. They're like an aerosol can that's a fire extinguisher, and I got 2 of them at Costco, and they're friggin' incredible. They really work.
I saw those. Because I've been out of the official employment world for 2.5 years now. So I used to be all in the, I was OSHA trained and all that kind of thing, safety officer, all that. So I was completely up to date on all that type of thing, but I haven't seen any of that stuff in years. But I remember those coming out, and I had seen them, but I think I've seen them in a store, but I've never put hands on one. I was kind of curious to how well they would work.
We did a video, I don't know, back in April. No, there was snow on the ground anyway. And I give it to she would have been 10-year-old daughter at the time. No instructions. I just said, put the fire, point it, and hit the trigger. And I mean, I love them because they're cheap. It was like $30 for 2 cans. And we've put out, geez, I hate to say it, probably 3 grease fires on the barbecue with the 1 can. Plus we used the one can to do, I did a grease fire and I did a paper fire in kind of a controlled environment, and they work incredible. And they're biodegradable. So say you had to spray a little on your steak, it's not the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean? Not that you want to do that, but, and like they have, I forget if I think it's a 10-year shelf life, but they're just there. They're always there. They're cheap enough. You can take 3 or 4 of them and just throw them all around the house, as opposed to a fire extinguisher that's supposed to be recertified every year. And
Yeah. Now, as soon as we get done, I'm going to be on YouTube looking up to see if anybody's done that with a steak. Sprayed one of those edible or, biodegradable things on there and did a taste test with it.
well, I never did a video, but we did. I came home one day and my wife's like, well, I sprayed it on there. Can we eat it? I'm like, I'm not wasting that T-bone. So yeah. And we did, and I didn't die. So I guess, but it was, yeah, whatever. It's just it's a fluid. It's complete. I forget what it is, but it's inert and whatever, but yeah. So any other tips or tricks or anything before we've been an hour and 15 minutes. Didn't even feel like a half hour.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to talk about any of the cool toys yet.
Well, what toys?
Oh, I don't know. I just figured, we could probably stay on here for about 5 or 6 days talking about all the stuff we got.
Ain't that the truth?
But, no, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I think I pretty much hit most of the notes I had made. It really is. I always, when I was teaching anything in the military, whether it was, hooking up to another boat for tow or shipboard firefighting or maritime law enforcement, any of that stuff, I always taught that it was a mindset.
Okay.
And I always said, I'm not always going to be here, so I need you to learn how to think for yourself. That's why I'm not just going to give you the answer. Mm-hmm. I'll sit here and I'll poke you in the right direction, but I'm trying to get you to think so that you can figure this stuff out on your own. Because when I leave, you're going to be the one that's going to have to step up and fill my shoes and teach the next guy.
Mm-hmm.
So any time with stuff like this is really the mindset that I try to get people into, because I don't know everybody's scenario. I have no idea what you're going to get into. So if I can just get you to start thinking about stuff like that, you're going to think of something that I didn't.
I love it. Yeah.
So
just getting people thinking, I don't know. I find I can have ideas in my brain and I'll be beating them around, but the best time for good ideas to come out are when I'm talking to somebody like-minded, and all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I never thought of it that way. Right.
Yeah. And all it takes too, I had one situation, this was Memorial Day weekend, and I was on duty, and we had one thing after another, and I had this one boat that was giving me a problem with the GPS, and we can't get the boat underway without the GPS, technically.
Mm-hmm.
So the boat's officially dead in the water without the GPS, and I played at that thing all weekend long, and I tried every trick in the book. And I went through one thing right after another, and I played with it, and finally, next guy shows up to relieve me, and I was like, dude, I did this, I went through this, and this. And he sat there for about 10 seconds, and he thought about it, and he was like, it's the wire.
Oh.
I was like, damn it, you're right. I was like, the actual wire, the power wire had gone bad.
Right.
Which was not something normal that I would have thought of, on top of the fact that I was exhausted from everything that had gone on. But it took one other person 10, 15 seconds to think about it with a fresh mind, and he was like, it's this. And sure enough, that's exactly what it was.
We get blind, hey? Like, and part of it, I think too, like you talk, when you're going, every day in and day out, going in and out of your house, sometimes talking about security, you don't always see things. I know I get blind to it, But then if you have somebody else, like whether you have them come by or even just sit and chat for a little bit, sometimes it spurs something on, you know?
Yeah,
No, that,
absolutely.
all right. Well, so anything else before we close up, Tactical?
No, I mean,
Where can anybody find you? I know you got a little presence on YouTube, right?
yeah, I've got the Tactical Redneck equipment on YouTube. It's really the only place I've got anything right now. I think I still have a Facebook page out there somewhere, but I haven't logged onto Facebook in so long. I don't know when the last time I did was.
Mm-hmm.
I haven't posted anything on YouTube in quite a while. If anybody has something that they'd like to see me do a video on, my email address should be in the about section, but I am getting ready to do a couple of videos here soon. I've got a couple of new pairs of Boggs footwear, and I just got a couple of comments on an old video I did, so I'm getting ready to do an update with a pair of Boggs that I've had for coming up on 2 years, and I'm still wearing them. They've got some holes in them now, but I'm going to be able to get a good review on those. And then I've got some cast iron stuff that I'm probably over the winter going to be doing some videos on shortcutting, getting some cast iron and stuff like that. So hopefully I'll be getting some fresh content up on there here relatively shortly.
And you're kind of active on MeWe too, hey? A little bit. That's where I got you.
Yeah, I am active on MeWe. I don't always jump on there on a regular basis, but if you send me a message in the chat, I will probably see that.
Okay.
But yeah,
That'll
that's
be
another that and Telegram.
okay.
Either email, MeWe, chat, or Telegram is usually the best way to find me.
What's your email? If you don't mind giving it out.
Tactical Redneck Equipment at Gmail.
Oh, well, that's as damn simple as it gets, right? So
Yeah.
cool. All right, sir. Well, if you want to hang on just a second, I'll close up the show and I'll pop back on with you for 1 sec.
Okay.
Thanks, Tactical.
Have a good night. Bye.
All right, guys. Well, that was absolutely incredible. I expected just as much out of Tactical. He's a kindred spirit. I mean, as far as certain things go, but I can't wait to meet him in real life because, yeah, I was supposed to last year. I was all excited when we were going to go down to Tennessee. We didn't make it, obviously, because everything got shut down again. And our plan is to go this year. So I cannot wait to meet the man and shake his hand in real life. But we'll have to have him back on again. If you guys have any questions, follow up, send them to me. I can forward them along as well. And yeah, don't forget, what do we got coming up? Thursday night is the number 4 episode of Preparedness. We're going to talk about the electrical systems in the home. And yeah, and after that, we won't have another live stream until the 30th of December for the 50th episode. So I'm looking forward to it. I'll miss you guys, but we'll all have a Merry Christmas, I'm sure. So anyway, guys, as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and have a great week.